Hey guys, thanks for watching Nerf Force, because today I'm going to be showing you how to mod a Nerf Stryfe. In this video, you will see me remove the locks, and I will take out the resistors, but I will not be rewiring the system. If you plan on rewiring your system, watch Coop772's video on how to mod a Nerf Stryfe, and let's get started. Okay, so the very first thing you want to do when you're modding is take out your clips and any jammed darts. Hopefully you haven't jammed your gun recently. If your gun is jammed, you should be able to take this apart and pull the bullet out. And now we can start unscrewing the screws, which I've already done, so there are no hidden screws. So after you have unscrewed everything, you can go ahead and pop the screws off. Be careful when you're taking everything apart, because there are some things that will pop out. If you're not careful, you just like rip it off. So there's this, and that goes into the 1/2, just like that. Okay, so we're gonna set that aside, and be sure to keep all of your screws in a safe place. Note there are 2 smaller screws that in this piece right here. The screws that go here and here are smaller than all the rest, so you might want to keep those separate. And definitely be sure to keep your screws in a safe place. They are vital to the function of your gun. So now what we're going to start by doing is removing some locks. So the very first lock you might want to remove is this lock right here. It is called the dart lock. It is very easy to remove. All you have to do is pop this out. You might want to keep this just in case you realize that you didn't want to take that out. This will not hurt your gun in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it might even help it, because when you pull this trigger, and there's not a dart loaded in, this here hits the plastic here, and after multiple times of pulling the trigger and hitting that, you will probably break this eventually. So we've removed that lock. That's called the dart lock. The next lock we're going to remove is the lock that prevents you from pulling the trigger when there is not a clip loaded in. Okay, so now that we have taken the gun apart, I'm going to show you how to remove the lock that prevents you from pulling the trigger when there is not a clip loaded in. I forgot to mention what you will need for this. You will need a larger Phillips head screwdriver and a smaller Phillips head screwdriver, and possibly some pliers for this mod. The pliers for digging out the screws when you accidentally drop them in small places. So you're going to start by removing this screw right here. So we'll do that real quick. My Phillips head screwdriver is just a little bit too big, so you don't want too big of a screwdriver. Keep this screw safe, in a safe place. Now you don't have to remove this screw. All you can do is pop that off kind of there, and slide it over. You just leave that right there. And leave this untouched after you have removed this screw. You don't need to do anything else up here. Next thing you need to do is remove the trigger itself. So you're going to take out this screw. Keep this one safe as well. I'm not sure if these screws are different sizes, so I'm just keeping them separate, just in case. Okay, so now that you have removed the trigger and the screw up here, what you're going to do, you're going to take your small screwdriver, and you're going to unscrew this little plate right here. This is what we're actually trying to get at. So we're going to screw this. Keep these screws safe as well. Keep all of your screws safe. Do not mix them in with your black screws that hold the shell together. You'll have a terrible mix-up, but hopefully you can tell the difference between black and silver. And then, so you're gonna want to remove these pieces, you're gonna remove these pieces. This is what actually pulls here, and there's a switch. There's a switch here. Then when the clip inserts, it pushes this back, and then the flow of electricity can run through to the flywheels. So what you're going to do is remove this, and then what you're actually getting at is this little tiny piece. You'll know you have it right because it has the spring on the bottom. You're gonna remove that, and you want to keep this in because we are not rewiring the system. So you're gonna put that back in, and you're going to screw your little plate back on. It goes on just like this. And then, of course, you're going to screw it back in. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the lock that prevents you from pulling the trigger when you have not pulled this back. When you have not pulled the revving trigger back. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your small screwdriver and unscrew the screw right here. And we're going to remove this plate. Keep the screw safe. Pop the plate off. And now, I'm going to take this out. Don't worry. We're going to put it back in. Keep the spring there. And you're going to take out this little box-like thing. Because this prevents you from pulling, this is what prevents you from pulling the trigger when you have not pulled the revving trigger back. So now you have to put the revving trigger back in, like that, and put the plate back on. We're going to screw it back in, and after we have that screwed in, we're going to replace the trigger back into the wasp. Okay, so now we're going to replace the trigger. So what you're going to need is your two screws, the two silver screws that we removed earlier, the big ones, and your trigger. What you're going to do is you're going to replace your trigger. It goes over this little loop thing here. And you take one of your screws. They are the same size. It has been declared by moi. And you have to screw it in just like this. Of course, try not to strip your screw or your screwdriver. I don't know what the proper wording is for that. Like, don't make it so that you can't put your screwdriver in there and never screw it out again. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to take this piece here, slide it over this little blue piece, and when you're sliding this back over, make sure that your trigger is all the way forward. Slide it over, because there's a little knob right there that pulls this back, this little piece back, which is going to let your trigger push the bullet out, or the dart outwards. Now you're going to take your other screw, place it in here. Oh dear. If I can screw it in. Okay, so we got it here, almost. Okay, there we go. So that's screwed in, and now you can pull the trigger without any locks. So this will not increase the range of your gun, but this will increase your rate of fire. You should be able to pull the trigger faster because the dart lock is not getting in your way, and you probably won't break this quite as fast. Hopefully you're glad you are glad that you did this. And remember, you don't have to remove all of these locks. You can just remove the ones that you feel are necessary. Okay, so now we're ready to remove the resistors from your motor right here. This step is absolutely optional. But to get to the motor, you're going to need to unscrew this screw, this screw, this screw, and this screw, which I've already done. Be sure to keep them separate from all the other ones because they are longer than all the rest. To get this out here, there's a little piece connecting these. So you're going to pull that up a little bit, wiggle it and jiggle it until you get this out. Keep this safe because it does have the tactical rail on it. And now you're going to want to remove, there's a little tiny orange piece right here that keeps your wires in place. There's two screws, which you can see I've already removed. gonna remove this little piece and also keep that safe. And now you can flip the motor over. These 4 little black things are your resistors. I'm going to be cutting them out 2 at a time, so I'm going to cut out the negative ones first, then the positive, or the positive, the negative, I honestly don't know. I'm going to solder them on. I will only be showing you soldering once, and I recommend before you do this, you do a little bit of research on soldering if you don't know how to solder. Yeah, so now we're gonna cut out the motors. Okay, so here we are. My dad is gonna help me solder this a little bit. Here, if you can see that, we have already replaced 2 of the resistors, tested the connection, and it is running like grease. It's really good. So this is the only piece of soldering that we're actually going to show you. So my dad is wrapping around the wire there, so the red is positive and the black is negative. Keep track of that. And he's wrapped the positive around the little copper wire that we have put in right here, and now he's going to solder that. He is now tinning the tip of the soldering iron that we have borrowed from some friends. Before you do any soldering, you want to learn how to solder first. Here we go. Okay. And there we go. The solder cools rather quickly. You can see it's nice and shiny where he has just soldered. And then we're going to do it to the negative terminal, and we will show you what it is like when we are finished. Okay, so as you see here, we have successful connections. We have tested it, and it is awesome. Notice we have taken off the black things. Recommend you do that for soldering, before you solder, sorry. And we're going to put those back on. Okay, so now we have the motor back in place. And what you're going to need to put the blaster, and we're going to put the blaster back together. So you're going to need your muzzle here. You're going to slip this just up a little tiny bit. Slide that back in. And push it down just like that. Okay, so now that you've done that, you want the screws that went to your motor. They're the longer ones. And you're going to take your tiny screwdriver and screw that back in. Going to do this with all of the screws. Remember, as I said earlier, you do want to keep all of your screws nice and safe. And as you can see, it has been a couple of days since the last few steps. The reason being because we did not have a soldering iron, but I promised you that I would show you how to remove the resistors, which I did. So here I've got the motor screwed back into place. Gonna test the connections once more. Smooth. Okay. So now we're going to take this piece right here, the piece that covered all of your wires right here, and we're going to screw that back in. This will not fit if you don't put it in the right way. There is a right way and a wrong way to put this thing in, so do be careful, or make sure that you're doing it the right way. Don't become frustrated because it won't fit, because it will. Be not afraid. Oh man. Okay, so I've got the black wire stuck up in there. I will come back to you guys once I have the black wire in place. Sorry about that. Okay, so after unscrewing the motors, actually, I got this thing back in, this piece right here back in. And now we are ready to put the blaster as a whole, all back together. So you're going to need the shell. Place that back on. And then you're going to screw the whole thing back together. I will only make you watch through 2 screwings. And remember, the 2 screws up here and right here are smaller than all the rest. Not that you'll see much of a difference if you accidentally screw the longer ones in. And so after I have screwed this all back in here, I will show you guys, whoopsie daisies, a firing test. Dang it, now I have to clean all this up. Okay, so I have here my modified Stryfe with 6 brand new crisp elite darts. And like in the review video, we're going to be zooming in here on the cajon drum. That will be shooting 6 shots from about the same distance, and seeing how much more of a thwack it will make. Note, I do not have upgraded batteries in this yet. You'll probably see upgraded batteries in later videos. I might make a little short video on that once I have the upgraded batteries, but here we go. Wait, one more. Okay, so those were some pretty bad shots by me. It definitely made more of the thwack on the ones that it did hit than when it was unmodded. It's very nice, super smooth action. I would definitely recommend some lithium ion grease here for the trigger. It's really smooth now. And just in case you wanted to know, if you take out the lock from down here, when you pull this, you have a clip loaded in, you pull back far enough, it will start the revving. This is because there is a little tab that runs up from the rev trigger, and once you pull this back, the trigger back far enough, it revs. So note that if you're having any questions about that, and I hope you guys enjoyed.